walls closing in on Donald's little buddy, Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz, the traveling Trump troll who's the subject of an ongoing sex crimes investigation.
Despite 2 years of headlines suggesting otherwise, it now seems Congressman Matt Gaetz will not be charged after an investigation into whether the congressman paid for sex with a then 17-year-old girl.
The Justice Department will not be charging Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz as part of a sex trafficking investigation. Gaetz has been under investigation since 2021. Federal investigators are trying to determine whether he had sex with a 17-year-old girl and paid for her to travel with him. Gaetz, for his part, though, has repeatedly denied the allegations.
Now, back in March of 2021, y'all remember this, the DOJ announced that it was investigating Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz over whether he had a sexual relationship with a 17-year-old girl and paid her to travel with him. That's a violation of sex trafficking laws.
Embattled Congressman Matt Gaetz is being accused today of snorting cocaine.
This really disgusting, disgraceful, vile, nasty. Anyone got any other adjectives for me?
It's claimed they had an ongoing financial relationship in exchange for sex.
Unbelievable, despicable, low down, in the gutter, ghetto, trashy example of a last-minute witness intimidation.
The woman is identified as Megan Zelanka. Her modeling portfolio describes her as a 5'9" blonde with blue-green eyes. The Daily Beast says Megan Zelanka was Gaetz's date at a Trump Defender Gala in 2019.
From a member of Team Trump, Congressman Matt Gaetz. This is shocking, coming from a sitting member of Congress. Okay? You ready for this?
Y'all ready for this?
At an after-party allegedly held in Gaetz's hotel room, the magazine quotes two witnesses as saying they saw Zelanka preparing lines of cocaine on the bathroom counter.
The New York Times with the report that Republican Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz is under investigation by the Justice Department over claims of a, quote, sexual relationship with a 17-year-old, paying for her to travel with him, end quote.
But allegations are mounting against Florida Congressman and GOP rising star Matt Gaetz, including an investigation into child sex trafficking and other sexual misconduct allegations.
Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz is having a bad week after a bombshell report by the New York Times last night. If you're not familiar with Matt Gaetz, this is his Twitter profile. That should tell you all you need to know.
Gaetz, a controversial and somewhat prominent Republican who was a big ally of Donald Trump.
They're looking into whether or not he had a sexual relationship with a 17-year-old and paid for her travel across state lines, which becomes sex trafficking.
There is breaking news about Trump acolyte Matt Gaetz, the Florida congressman, now under federal investigation for possible sex trafficking.
Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz of Florida is under federal investigation over a possible sexual relationship with a 17-year-old girl.
But now, tonight, on the front page of the New York Times, we get the national kick in the teeth that comes with this story. This is the headline tonight on the front page of the Times. Quote, Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz is said to be investigated over possible sexual relationship with girl age 17.
Gaetz's behavior was so brazen and so stupid that it actually boggles the mind, because the only reasonable explanation for his behavior is that he felt that he would be protected by Donald Trump and his corrupt Justice Department. I know the playbook, and it didn't work for me, and it's certainly not going to work for you. So Matt Gaetz really needs to smarten up and understand that he's in very serious trouble.
Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz defiant and doubling down in the face of allegations that he was involved in sex trafficking and that he had sex with a 17-year-old girl.
I think that Trump emboldened people like Matt Gaetz, you know? I mean, if Daddy's doing it, well, then I can. And I think he's really in a lot of trouble when even Fox is turning on him, okay? Okay. 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 That's fine. Okay. Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay.
This is crazy. Matt Gaetz being accused of sex crimes
Okay. Go ahead. You're wondering why things are going a little slow. It's because there's so much corruption among Republicans in the state of Florida that once you kick over one rock, you got to go chase all the little cockroaches that came running out from underneath it. And that's what these investigators are doing. They're stretched a little thin.
Congressman Matt Gaetz is no longer a target of investigation for alleged sex trafficking of girls. His legal team says has been informed that the case has been closed by the Justice Department.
In the meantime, Greenberg continues to cooperate, but once he goes to prison and is safely secured inside a prison where nobody can get to him, that's when I predict the indictments are going to come out. And I believe, by the way, that day is roughly December 10th. Somewhere in the first third of the month of December, Greenberg goes to jail, and I expect that's when all the indictments will come out. Midterm voting will have ended, so if they want to indict Matt Gaetz at that point, they're not interfering with the election. I think that would be the smartest move for them, and I think, logically speaking, that's probably when it's going to happen anyway.
It started to become apparent Gaetz would be in the clear in December when his buddy, former Seminole County tax collector Joel Greenberg, was sentenced.
But again, the big overall takeaway is that 8 different people close to this investigation in one way or another say that Matt Gaetz is not clear. Matt Gaetz is not safe, and they're still coming after him with everything they've got.
Republican Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz no longer has the Department of Justice looking over his shoulder.
A federal investigation into Congressman Matt Gaetz and his alleged sex crimes is picking up steam.
Calls for him to leave Congress, including from Republican Adam Kinzinger, who says Gaetz needs to resign.
He should certainly resign in the same way that I think Cuomo should resign. There's also this really weird group of people that always hung out at Mar-a-Lago in the Trump years, and clearly Matt Gaetz and his teenage girlfriends were allegedly those people as well.
Gaetz rejecting calls to resign, defiantly telling a conservative women's group he's not going anywhere.
Last night, Congressman Adam Kinzinger of Illinois became the first Republican lawmaker to publicly call on Congressman Matt Gaetz to resign, following the revelation that he's the subject of a federal sex crimes investigation.
What is going on with the Matt Gaetz scandal? And I'm afraid we're going to have to be more specific than that, because it appears that there is a scandal inside of a scandal inside of a scandal.
And while Gaetz deploys the Trump playbook, doubling down in the face of scandal, Republican allies have been hard to find.
Having thrown all these very serious charges against Greenberg, they're going to try to flip him and get him to testify against his good friend, the Congressman Matt Gaetz. I would bet that at the end of the line, that's where they're trying to go with this investigation. If I was Gaetz, that would be the thing I would be most worried about.
I actually have to give a lot of credit to the New York Times as well as to the Daily Beast for uncovering this, because, this thing is great fodder for Saturday Night Live and all of the comedians. Because if you think about it, right, the best part of this is the fact that Gaetz actually paid for sex using Venmo, right, and then titled the payments tuition in school. In all fairness, this dope should have as well linked his Instagram account to his Seeking Arrangements account. That's how stupid that he is.
Gaetz taking it as a clear sign of support, blasting out a fundraising email asking supporters to help Trump and I fight back against another media hoax.
The bombshell, that's even what the Daily Beast is calling it, the bombshell reporting from the Daily Beast about what just took place with Matt Gaetz, which it is a bombshell.
Yeah, no charges will be filed against Representative Matt Gaetz after a year-long federal sex trafficking investigation.
Matt Gaetz had sex with minors.
Republican congressman from Florida has been told he will not be charged in that Justice Department investigations into possible sex trafficking.
Congressman Gaetz has never paid for sex, nor has he had sex with a 17-year-old as an adult. Here's how I know he's lying. Nowhere in the story did they say that Joel Greenberg was making false accusations against people.
Joel Greenberg is now an admitted felon. One of the things he admitted to today is falsely accusing a teacher who challenged him for his county tax collector seat. He falsely accused that teacher of being a pedophile.
Greenberg now admits he tried to smear a political rival.
Nowhere in the story did they say that Joel Greenberg was making false accusations against people.
Greenberg now admits he wrote a letter posing as a student, accusing the teacher of being a pedophile.
So even in his statement, he's lying. In his denial, if it's riddled with lies, everything else can be considered riddled with lies.
Now, as far as what's available publicly, this would be the first indication of any inadvertent admission of guilt by Gaetz, because remember, accepting a pardon is an acknowledgement of guilt.
Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz of Florida could be in deeper and more serious legal trouble than previously reported.
Florida Representative Matt Gaetz says the Justice Department will not file charges in the sex trafficking case against him.
A minor comes with it a mandatory minimum sentence of 10 years in prison.
Well, Gaetz at the time and to this day says none of it was true. Now, the media and even some of his congressional colleagues didn't care. They baselessly smeared him over one of the most vile accusations imaginable.
Matt Gaetz, who is, pretty close at some point to hopefully being indicted for being a pedophile.
It's an indictment of today's GOP, a party that elevates the ignorant, the racist, the fabulous, and the fraud. Matt Gaetz, the credible charges of sex trafficking.
Matt Gaetz is an alleged child sex trafficker who has been under federal criminal investigation. He decided who would be the speaker.
Well, it's bad news for Matt Gaetz. I think he thought that because there was a delay in this case, it was taking forever, that there was light at the end of the tunnel. But it turns out that the light was just an oncoming train. And this is bad for him. But I think it's worse that the ex-girlfriend testified before the grand jury. She really is the linchpin between Matt Gaetz and child sex trafficking and the Mann Act, which says you can't transport individuals across state or federal lines for purposes of prostitution, and witness tampering.
Because one way or another, they always tell on themselves. And what's especially telling about this is how Gaetz is one of the loudest voices for a Republican Party that has spent the last few years calling Democrats groomers and pedophiles. And yet, it's that party that's lined up behind Matt Gaetz, who's now under investigation for child sex trafficking. It's that party who's lined up behind Jim Jordan, who was accused of ignoring the sexual assault of hundreds of students during his time as wrestling coach at OSU. It's that party that's lined up behind other sexual deviants like Donald Trump.
Are they projecting a little bit? Like, wasn't it the CNN president of the company that had to step aside because of sexual allegations? Wasn't it their top-rated show, Cuomo, that had to get canceled because of lies and cover-ups over sexual allegations? And then it was their own legal analyst who had no problem opining as to the lies about me, then has to step aside because he was doing unspeakable things on a Zoom broadcast. So I don't really take my P's and Q's from the mainstream media. Okay. For the last 2 years, I've been fighting for my constituents, and the mainstream media largely has been like a refuge for scoundrels and weirdos.
So I can see why Republicans are so concerned about pedophiles and groomers, considering their party is crawling with them.
You lie! You're a fucking liar! Shut up! Step away from politics. Maybe go try to find yourself a spot on Fox or Newsmax. Reboot the program To Catch a Predator, because I think Matt Gaetz would be perfect for the role.
We also saw a plane flying a banner over the courthouse in Florida today. It read, "TikTok, Matt Gaetz."
Now, today, the final vindication as the DOJ officially decided it will not pursue any charges.
You've had this accusatory cloud hanging over your head with no opportunity to defend yourself for almost 2 years now, and now comes the announcement 2 years later that you're not going to be charged at all, let alone convicted. What's your reaction to all of that?
Well, the announcement is not surprising, but it's certainly welcome. I'm pleased with the announcement, but can't say it's a big surprise.
So I know, happy Tuesday. Blech, this exists. I'm sorry.